Good evening, everyone. We'll start in the next minute or two. Thank you for joining us this evening. We look forward to chatting with you about Central Coast Community Energy.
Electricity. It powers our everyday lives. It brings you light, opportunity, progress. But where does it come from? In California, our homes and businesses are part of the Western grid, powered by clean and renewable energy sources, as well as dirty fossil fuel sources, creating electrons every second of the day to ensure we have reliable and on-demand energy to power our lives. Think of the grid as a big pool full of electrons, delivering electricity that is a mixture of all types of energy, clean and dirty. The more clean energy we can put on the grid, the cleaner all electricity will be. And Central Coast Community Energy is now the primary electricity provider for the Central Coast. We are helping to put more clean energy on the grid, and our goal is to achieve 100% clean and renewable energy by 2030, exceeding the state's goal by 15 years and tripling our own investments in clean technologies to reduce the need for fossil fuels. And we can do this affordably to ensure your electric rates are competitive while we reinvest in our communities. Together, we're energizing economic and environmental progress for the Central Coast. To learn more about Central Coast Community Energy and our pathway to 100% renewable energy, please visit www.3cenergy.org.
Good evening, everyone. It's now, we want to say thank you for joining us, and we want to welcome you to our community public forum this evening. We are hosting Central Coast Community Energy, and we're hosting virtual public forums in both English and Spanish to our customers and our communities. And tonight's event will be held in English, and we will have a public forum in Spanish on Thursday of this week at 6 p.m. I want to let everyone know that this webinar is actually being recorded, and it's actually being recorded on Facebook also, and we will be streaming on Facebook. So please look for us there too. During this evening's presentation, we will highlight who Central Coast Community Energy, also known as 3CE, is, who we are, who we serve, and what benefit customers can look forward to by joining and being served by us. During our question and answer session at the end of after this presentation, please use the chat box or use the Q&A. Both of these are at the bottom of your screen, and you can answer your question, or you can also raise your hand, and we're able to unmute you, and you can either type your question into the chat box, and we will read it out loud and respond, or we can actually unmute you, and you can actually ask your question out loud. So we thank you again for being with us this evening. And at this time, I have the pleasure of introducing two guests who are joining us this evening, Supervisor Williams and Supervisor Hartman, both who are individuals. They're leaders in our community, and they deliver benefits to the communities that they serve. So we want to say thank you for joining us. Supervisor Williams is actually Santa Barbara County's first district supervisor. So his district covers from Carpinteria to Santa Barbara and includes communities such as Summerlin, Montecito, Cuyama, the east side and the west side, downtown, and the Mission Canyon. He's indicated that he's thrilled about the launch of Central Coast Community Energy in Santa Barbara County, and he's proud to serve on the 3CE Policy Board. He's a supporter of the development of clean energy locally, which provides both economic and environmental benefits. Would you like to take a few minutes and speak with us, Supervisor Williams?
Thanks so much. It's an honor to speak today. I feel very strongly that the county has both an important role in helping have a prosperous economy and in leading on our values, the values of local people here in Santa Barbara and the rest of the Central Coast. Joining a community choice program like 3CE can be that driving force for the Central Coast. I've been an active board member for the past year, and I've been participating in board meetings since early 2020. And I can speak to the innovation, thoughtfulness that the agency has and its fiscal guardianship. That's been able to accomplish a couple things. And I just want to apologize if you hear some toddlers in the background. That's my little girls having bath time. Setting a goal of 100% clean and renewable energy from new projects by 2030. That's an important goal. That's faster than the state goal. It's really the only, so the procurement by entities such as 3C is really the only new renewable energy that's coming on board right now. And so it's really important for the future of clean energy in the state. Customer successes like delivering $49.5 million in customer savings, providing customers with access to more than 12 million in energy program funding, and 24 million in customer financial relief that was needed by so many during COVID. Innovations like energy programs designed to address community challenges like, having a backup power supplies, and priorities like ag electrification and transportation electrification, so that all of us can think of getting in a clean car that helps the clean energy revolution. Fiscal responsibility. So 3CE is the first community choice aggregator to achieve a credit rating that will allow us to provide further value to our customers through lower cost, lower transaction costs, lower borrowing costs, and future economic opportunities. And because, frankly, we're just closer to the people. We do a lot of forums like this. We try to engage, even in the era of COVID, in a way where we can bring new customers on board, knowing what we're all about. I'll tell you, this isn't happening without your participation. The success of 3CE, both in terms of its renewable energy and in terms of being able to deliver at a competitive cost, comes because of a relatively low level of opt-out, meaning the people in the jurisdictions that have joined have stuck with us. So I hope after tonight, you'll be excited to join and excited to stick with 3CE.
Thank you, Supervisor Williams. We appreciate your support, and we appreciate your taking the time to share with us what you think is important. Thank you very much. It looks like at this time that Supervisor Hartman may not have been able to attend at this moment. So we will potentially save her remarks for the end as we move along. She gets the opportunity to join us, because she is also another passionate advocate of clean energy and a supporter of Central Coast community energy. So we are lucky to have the officials and such around us that actually see how we actually become part of the community and bring the services back to the community. So we say thank you. At this time, I would like to actually introduce Oswaldo Martinez. Oswaldo is actually Central Coast Community Energy, or 3CE's Energy Public Engagement Associate. He's a key member of our team, and he's the individual who will give the presentation tonight. So Ozzy, you're up.
Thanks so much, Susan, for the introduction. And again, just to provide a quick little, I suppose, repetition of what Susan's been saying. My name is Oswaldo Martinez. I serve as the Energy Public Engagement Associate for the agency. I do a lot of the outreach to our communities our enrolling communities in SLO and Santa Barbara counties. And so you may have already seen me out in front of the community, virtually, of course, giving presentations about who the agency is, working with chambers as well to get this information out there. So hopefully through this presentation, we can deliver to you an overview of the agency, our services, an overview of the timeline of enrollment, as well as, of course, some of the benefits that we hope to highlight that CCAs, such as our own, can give to the community. And so without further ado, we like to start our story by sharing who we once were. We were formerly Monterey Bay Community Power, MBCP, because we started providing service back in the Monterey Bay region in 2018. But slowly but surely, we started to expand to communities in SLO and Santa Barbara counties. And so, of course, with the expansion, we found the need to choose a new name that could reflect our expanded service area. And so we ultimately fell on the name of Central Coast Community Energy. We like to go by 3CE. We do have a new website. And of course, we encourage folks to use 3CE should it be less of a tongue twister to use. And so before we get started with the presentation itself, we like to cover the FAQs in case folks here already have some of the pressing questions that you see here on the screen. We're going to go through each of these questions one by one, but just know that we'll cover them in greater detail along the presentation. So starting with the first question, is my bill going to increase? We get this question a lot from the community. And so the simple answer to this is no. Our electric generation rates are designed to be competitive and affordable with the investor-owned utility. In this case, it would be in comparison with PG&E. We discount our own electric generation rates, which allows for essentially a net savings at the end of the month, which is what you're going to see reflected on your monthly PG&E statement. The second question is, will I receive two bills? Again, the answer to this is no. We are, in a sense, working with PG&E. We're going to simply handle sourcing your electricity. So we're going to determine where and how that electricity is produced. The name of this service is electric generation. PG&E is still going to be on the ground providing any maintenance to the infrastructure. They're still going to be delivering that electricity physically to your home or to your business. And along with that, and importantly, they're going to be consolidating the billing, so you don't have to worry about getting two separate bills from two separate organizations. It's still going to come from PG&E. Will my service with PG&E be discontinued? Again, the answer is no. So as I mentioned before, hopefully one of the ideas that we can get across during this presentation is that PG&E is not retiring from the service region. They're still here to provide a lot of that physical service that comes along with your electricity service, right? So as I mentioned, they're still providing that maintenance of the infrastructure. They're still maintaining all of their utility and power lines. They're still providing meter readings. And if there's ever an outage, PG&E is still going to be the one that responds to any disruptions to your service. So you don't have to worry about PG&E completely retiring from the service region. They're still here to serve you. Will I lose my PG&E discounts, rebates, or programs? No. So one of the great things about this, as I said, it's a partnership in a sense. And so one of the great things about that is that you can still retain all of your discounts or rebates or programs with PG&E. So if you were perhaps a PG&E employee that has a discount through the company, if you are on CARE, FARA, or LIHEAP or Medical Baseline, these are monthly discount programs through PG&E. You don't have to worry about losing any of these benefits once you enroll. And finally, the question I see here is, do I have to make a decision today? So folks often wonder if they have to make that decision to remain enrolled or opt out today. We just want to reassure everyone that you have until the end of March to make a decision at no cost. And so the enrollment period technically began when we sent our first notification back in November. We sent subsequent notifications in December. One is coming in February, and the last one is coming in March. Within this 150-day period, you have the opportunity to make that decision that you think is going to best suit your household, whether to really the choice is whether you would like to remain enrolled, in which case 3CE will be sourcing your electricity, or if you would like to opt out and return to the PG&E bundled service. So as I said, you have until the end of March to make that decision. At no cost. You can opt out, you can re-enroll, or even opt out and re-enroll once again as many times as you would like within this period. So as I said, any folks that are on discount programs, we understand these are increasingly important right now, especially as folks are finding the need for these programs to pay the bills at the end of the month. So if you're on CARA, FARA, HEAP, or medical baseline, or you know any folks that may be on these programs, I just encourage you to get the word out that if these folks have any concerns about enrolling with us and losing their access to these programs, there's no need to worry. In fact, when they enroll with us, they don't have to make any changes to these programs. These programs are still administered by the investor-owned utility. So in this case, it would be PG&E. So there's no need to make any changes. If you choose to enroll with us, of course, no need to worry. And so one of the questions we get a lot as an agency is people want to know if we are a private company or if we are something else, right? And so the answer to that is that we are a public agency. Some folks like to refer to us as a community choice aggregator. Other folks refer to us as a community choice energy program. We like to use the acronym CCA. And so CCAs across the state, their role really is to source the electricity on behalf of residents and businesses in the communities that participate in a CCA. So currently there are about 23 CCAs throughout the state of California. Altogether, we serve 10 million customers. And along with that, there are about 200 towns, cities, and counties that have elected to join CCAs because they see the many benefits in doing so. So I think some of the chief benefits that come with joining a CCA, this is one of the, these are some of the many reasons why communities have elected to join CCAs, is that they could provide local control to the communities that have elected to join a CCA. So now your local communities now have more control over where your energy comes from. Typically, CCAs have a focus on advancing clean and renewable energy at a much quicker rate than at the state level. Along with that, CCAs are very locally minded. So we aren't governed by shareholders or investors, but rather to the communities that make up our CCA. So we always try to reinvest back into the community through rebates, through incentives, otherwise known as energy programs. We try to reinvest through local energy projects, through local job creation. Again, one of the things that makes us an attractive choice to a lot of communities is that we have transparency as a public agency. So we are governed by the very elected leaders, the very city and county administrators that come from the communities that have elected to join a CCA. And so to provide a quick and simple distinction of who does what, you can think of all CCAs, such as Central Coast Community Energy, as the agency that sources your electricity. So we're here to determine essentially the ingredients of your energy supply. We're sourcing from energy sources such as solar, such as wind, geothermal, and even battery storage for that added reliability. Along with that, we are sourcing from a couple of non-renewable sources. But as we are progressively reaching the year 2030, we are diminishing our dependence on non-renewable sources up until we can proudly say that we provide 100% clean and renewable energy for all of our residents and businesses. PG&E in this equation, as you see here in the graphic, they're still responsible for the physical delivery of that electricity, so you can still depend on them to send that electricity to your home or to your business, repair any equipment failures that you may see on the streets, provide meter readings, respond to outages, and along with that, and importantly, as I mentioned before, they're sending one single consolidated bill for all of the customers. So when you see us on your PG&E monthly statement, you'll see us featured as a new line item known as electric generation charges that come from Central Coast Community Energy. Just know that these aren't duplicated or additional charges. We're simply dividing up who does what in your new electric service. So in summary, we are a public agency. We are comprised of the 33 communities that have elected to join this agency. One thing I didn't mention before is that every community had to undergo an extensive public input process that did not happen overnight. Every community had to undergo their own analysis, extensive public input from the community during the county or the city council meetings, where of course folks were welcomed and encouraged to provide their input, whether against or for joining a CCA. And ultimately, by majority vote at each of your city or county leadership meetings, it was they determined essentially that they would request to join a CCA, at which point our policy board makes that ultimate decision on approving new communities requesting to join a CCA. And so for folks joining us here today, if you live in one of the enrolling communities, such as the city of Paso Robles, the South County cities of Grover Beach, Arroyo Grande, and Pismo Beach, or if you live in any of the enrolling communities of Santa Barbara County, whether that's Guadalupe, Santa Maria, Solvang, or the unincorporated Santa Barbara communities that are served by PG&E, your communities have enrolled as of January of this year. In one of the next slides, I'll get into the specifics of when that transition occurs for each customer, but just know that if you live in these communities, you are in fact enrolling because your local leadership had made that decision to join the CCA. While we're on this slide, as you can see here in the map, I do also want to quickly distinguish which communities are not joining us during this period. So if you live in any of the unincorporated communities of San Luis Obispo County, whether that's Nipomo, San Miguel, or Oceano, or any of the other communities that are unincorporated, your communities are not enrolling with us at this time because your county leadership had made that decision to not join at this time. But of course, they could always go back to reviewing the possibility of joining a CCA at a later point in time. Of course, we would welcome these communities to enroll once that, if and when that time were to arrive. And so these 33 communities, they come together to really help determine and steer the direction of our agency, whether that's in determining our rates or determining key policy decisions or ways that we can reinvest back into our community. We have a policy and an operations board, and these are comprised of our local elected leaders. We do have Supervisor Williams, who takes part in our policy board. We've definitely benefited a lot from his leadership, as he's also participated in a lot of our executive committees as well to help steer feedback on key policy decisions. We do also have an operations board. This is made up of our city and county administrators from each of the communities. And so the way that seats are divvied up is based on population. So if your community has a population of 50,000 people or more, you do hold your own seat on the board. And if you have anything lower than that, your community would share the seat with one of the neighboring communities. So for example, if you live in the South County cities, you would see that Arroyo Grande, Grover Beach, and Pismo Beach all share the seat. They rotate who holds a seat at their own discretion. We leave it to these communities to make that decision on their own. So in terms of accomplishments, really just to put some of the accomplishments that you see here into perspective, we've been providing service for about two and a half years, I'd like to say, back when we started as Monterey Bay Community Power. And so for this brief period, we have been able to accomplish a couple of benefits for our existing customers. In terms of economic vitality, we've provided an estimated $50 million in customer savings because we were able to do that through our lower electric generation rates. In terms of how we've reinvested back into the community, one of the key ways that we did that was through our energy programs. We reinvested, up to date, we've reinvested $12 million through our energy programs. In terms of local support, as I said, we are an agency that always tries to champion local support. We do that through choosing or identifying ways that we can contract, preferably with local vendors. We are, of course, a source of employment for the folks that live in this region. And then for folks that may not know, we do have headquarters in Monterey, but we did recently open up a new office in San Luis Obispo for folks such as myself that are based down here, where we can work from once COVID restrictions are lifted, of course. And then as a testament to our financial stability, we did recently receive a A credit rating from S&P, which I think puts us in a really strong position to continue securing affordable contracts and affordable prices for all of our customers. So one of the ways that our boards, our communities come together and help benefit our own customers is through our rates. The primary service that we provide is electric generation, as I said. We are here to source your electricity. We determine where and how it's produced. And so as you see all throughout last year, 2020, our customers are seeing a consistent savings on their monthly PG&E bill because our agency is able to look at the generation rates and provide a discount off of those rates for our customers. And so beginning of the year in the first quarter, our customers are seeing about a 7% savings on their monthly bill because, again, we are able to discount our own electric generation rates. That provides for that net savings at the end of the month. For a 2-month period from May 1st to June 30th, our board unanimously approved a measure to support our folks, all of our customers essentially, with a 50% rate reduction. It didn't matter if you were a resident or commercial or ag customer, you were seeing a 50% rate reduction on all of your electric generation charges, which collectively was no small feat. It ended up adding up to more than $22 million that was injected back into the local economy. And from that point onward, including customers such as yourselves that will be seeing us on your first bill in February. That is, of course, if you choose to remain enrolled with us, that choice is yours. You will see about a 2% discount off of our generation rates because we are, again, we're still able to provide those savings, those competitive and affordable rates for all of our customers that are enrolling with us. And so before I get into this slide, I just want to quickly say that if for any folks that may be curious about what clean and renewable energy is, when we talk about that, we are referring to sources that can naturally regenerate, that don't produce any harmful greenhouse gases for the atmosphere. And so oftentimes you will hear us referring to such sources as solar energy, battery storage, wind, and geothermal, which all can collectively provide us a portfolio that can be 100% clean and renewable. And so what's really exciting about our, one of the key decisions that our board came together to make is to define a pathway, a strategy to achieve 100% clean and renewable energy for all of our residential and commercial customers by the year 2030. And what's really exciting about this strategy is that it would come 15 years well ahead of the state goal. So some folks may know that there is a Senate bill known as SB 100, that by the year 2045, the state is expected to go carbon neutral. We're aiming to achieve that for our region in terms of energy supply by the year 2030, which is really an exciting opportunity for us to be a leader, not only but also the local community is through our energy programs. You can think of these simply put as incentives or rebates for the customers. They're completely optional. You could apply for them if you would like, once they are released onto the community, of course. And so you can think of these as rebates, incentives that can encourage folks to electrify in different aspects of their life. So we do have programs for different segments of customers. So if you are a resident, you would stand to benefit from one of our upcoming residential electrification programs. Right now they are still in development, but the concepts would be, essentially they would be funding to help our residential customers obtain all electric cooking appliances, electric heat pump water heaters, or even charging stations to plug their electric vehicles at their home. We do also want to share programs with our commercial and nonprofits. For example, we plan to roll out funding for folks that would like to install electric charging stations on more public-facing property. We are working with our building developers to provide all-electric single-family homes or multi-unit dwellings. We plan to work with our school districts to provide funding to help them offset the cost of obtaining electric school buses, which we hope could also provide the benefits of providing a pollution-free environment for the students that ride those buses. So really, I hope this slide can provide somewhat of a snapshot to folks that may be curious about what our energy programs may look like. And of course, staff at 3C is always happy to share when these programs roll out. I would say during this year, when we hope that many of the programs that you see here on the screen can be developed and essentially finalized for the public to participate in. So folks often wonder, or I would say folks know that they generally do have a choice, right? You can choose to remain enrolled in 3CE, in which case you don't have to do anything. We're going to handle enrollment for you. But of course, you can also make that decision, right? If you would like to return to the complete bundled service of PG&E, in which case they will continue to generate all of the electricity for you. You could also make that decision as well. But if you choose to remain enrolled, you do also have another choice that you can make. So as you see here on the screen, you can choose to be defaulted into our primary offering. This is known as 3C choice. This is where you're going to see those competitive rates kick in, such as that 2% savings that I was referencing in one of the earlier slides. Except here, you will have to wait until 2030 to be paying into a supply that is 100% clean and renewable. If you prefer not to wait, of course, we applaud folks that would love to have 100% clean and renewable energy right now at this instant. We do have an offering for you. It's called 3C Prime. It does come at a premium cost of 1/8 of a cent more for every kilowatt hour than 3C choice. But in this offering, you would be paying for about 50% wind and 50% solar. Quickly pivoting to enrollment. Folks may have the question, once again, how long or how much time do I have to make a decision? So just to mention a couple other things before we get to that. As you see here on the screen, we sent, the state requires us to send a total of 4 notices by mail to all of our enrolling customers. So you may have already seen the first to arrive in November and December. These come, we've designed these to come 60 days prior to the start of your service in January. The last 2 will come in February and March. So this takes place within 60 days after the start of your service. So earlier in the presentation, I was referencing exactly when your transition to 3CE would take place. That's going to differ for every customer. That depends specifically on your meter read date with PG&E. I believe there are about 20 to 21 different meter read cycles throughout the month of January. So every customer is going to fall on a different date on exactly when they will transition to 3CE. So again, that differs from customer to customer. And so you may see us appear, essentially you can say that your service with 3CE starts at different dates within the month of January. That's going to be different for every customer. We just want to make sure that's really clear to all of our community members that are attending today. And so going back to the notices, you may have seen that in the notices, you can get information about who 3CE is, a couple of helpful links and resources, information about the terms and conditions, as well as instructions on how to opt out. So within this enrollment period from November to March, it's about a 150-day period. You have that opportunity to exercise your choice at no cost to you. So if you choose to opt out, re-enroll, opt out again, you can do it within this period until the end of March at no cost to you. We do want to be transparent though. If you choose to opt out, you choose to make that decision after the March deadline. So you do it at some point in April, for example, you would have to pay a small administrative fee of $5 if you are a resident, or $25 if you are a commercial customer. Another thing I want to add is that if you choose to opt out after the March deadline, you would have to wait about a year to be able to return to Central Coast Community Energy Service. Oftentimes, folks will say that, perhaps they missed some of those mailers that we've been sending. And so that's why our agency is committed to going above and beyond to make sure that we can get the word out. Of course, today marks a key example of how we do that. We want to get out in front of the community whenever possible. Of course, right now we are operating in a virtual environment, but what that additional outreach has looked like since November is really just engaging our key community organizations in different sectors of the economy, in different sectors of the nonprofit world whenever possible. Of course, we're also reaching out to some of our large businesses as well as our small businesses through the chambers, through direct calls to make sure that they understand what is going on in terms of the transition to 3CE service. We are also working to get notifications out specifically to our net energy metering customers, so they are aware of what changes are occurring when their transition will take place in terms of enrollment. For any folks that may be curious about how our website is updating its resources, we do have a frequently asked questions page for any folks that who may think that they have common questions that doesn't necessarily merit giving a call to our call center. You can find a lot of useful information and answers in our FAQs page. We did recently release a suite of videos, such as the one that you saw earlier today. Hopefully that can provide help condense a lot of the information that you're seeing about 3CE. And we have expanded our call center hours, so you could speak with an energy advisor should you want to make that decision to opt out, should you have any general questions, or should you want to opt up to 3C Prime, you can do it through our call center. Of course, we have leveraged in great deal collaboration with our city and county partners, city and county staff that have really gone above and beyond to help to make sure that they can get this information out to their respective communities. So as I said, PG&E is sending you one single consolidated bill. It's going to have the same look, almost the same feel. Prior to enrollment, you'll notice that PG&E was providing a bundled service. So they were servicing you in terms of electric generation, transmission, and distribution charges. Altogether, that amounts to the bundled service that they have provided. But if you choose to remain enrolled with us and you see us on your first bill, you'll see that there's not too many optic changes. The key difference here that you see on the post-enrollment bill is that PG&E now simply just charges you for the delivery of that electricity, whereas Central Coast Community Energy will charge you for the generation of that electricity. It's a division of who does what now. But just to reassure everyone, this doesn't signify a duplicated or additional charge. You're not seeing anything more on your bill than what you were paying for in the past. Along with that, there will be a new page from Central Coast Community Energy, just providing a further breakdown of some of those electric generation charges. And for any folks that have a greater curiosity of how their electric charges were determined, there is a list. There is a breakdown of all of those subcharges on, I want to say, page 2 or page 3 of the PG&E bill. As you see here in the center of the screen, they provide a complete breakdown of how those charges are determined for every customer. So we encourage you, especially if you have that curiosity, if that interest in knowing how those charges were determined, there is a page on the PG&E statement for you. And so we haven't forgotten about our customers that are on solar systems or wind systems. I imagine there are a couple of you attending our webinar here today. You are known as a net energy metering customer with PG&E. And so we want to just make sure that you understand that if you are a net energy metering customer, you will be on a different enrollment schedule than everybody else. The reason for this is that PG&E requires these customers to true up at the time of enrollment. For folks that don't know what a true up is, it's essentially a triggering of the annual invoice for these customers. And so to minimize any impacts to your true up, we are enrolling you in one of 3 strategically spread out months throughout the year of, well, throughout this year, 2021. So for any folks who have a true up that most closely aligns with April, you would be enrolling in the month of April. The same applies for folks that are near July or October. And so for NEM customers, there will be specific notifications to essentially let you know of what your enrollment timeline will look like. That's going to include a customer letter, an email notification, as well as a specific customer webinar to cater for you to answer any questions that you may have regarding your status as a net energy metering customer with 3CE. And so these folks are going to get notifications 60 days and 30 days prior to the start of their service. And for folks that are enrolling in April, excuse me, your true up would be, or your first notification would be coming this month. I'm inclined to say that it is coming at the end of this week or possibly next week by mail. And so we're still looking for opportunities to get out in front of the community. Today marks a a key opportunity to get that information to the folks that are attending this webinar. But there will be another forum for our residents that prefer to learn about this information in Spanish. That's happening on Thursday at 6 p.m. If you have questions as a business, commercial customer or ag customer, we will have a webinar available for you on March 9th at 4 p.m. And then on a routine basis, every week we do host virtual office hours. The key difference between office hours and call center and the call center is that you can, this is going to be done through Zoom, so you can talk or speak face to face with a staff member at 3CE. You can have your general questions answered and quickly drop out whenever you would like. You don't necessarily have to wait. With the call center, if the times or if they're receiving a lot of calls at a particular moment, you can just drop into one of our virtual office hours to have your questions answered quickly. But again, the distinction here is that if you are attending a virtual office hour, you can't have any, we tend to answer mostly general questions, maybe concepts related to the agency. If you have any account related questions, if you would like to opt out or opt up to Prime, you would be encouraged to do that through the call center. So to conclude, I'm going to go ahead and leave this slide available for folks to see in case you want to write it down real fast. These may be hopefully helpful resources for folks that have more curiosity about 3CE. The first one that I would like to share is that we do have an enrollment page on our website. This talks about all things enrollment. You can think of it as a really as a go-to source to learn about what enrollment entails for your community, what that's going to mean in terms of your service, how much time do you have to make a decision, where are the, how can I register for upcoming events? You can do that on the enrollment page as well. And of course, the page is going to provide a lot of useful links to other pages on the website as well, should you have greater interest in learning more about 3CE. If you want to make any general questions, you could always do it through our general email. You can give us a call at our call center. We have energy advisors available to address any questions that you may have. 7 days out of the week, we've expanded our call center hours. They will be available on the weekends as well, should you have availability more on the weekends. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and conclude the presentation portion of this workshop. I'm going to defer back to Susan, but again, thank you so much for listening, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Oswaldo, thank you for taking the time with the presentation. We have a chat box that is busy with lots of great questions. At this time, what I'd actually like to say thank you to Supervisor Williams for attending. He has included his email, and thank you to, so if you have any questions about 3CE or Santa Barbara County, he said, please email him direct. He put his information in the chat box. So we are now going to shift over to our Q&A session, question and answer session. We're going to have Liz actually head that up for us. She's been the one busily answering your questions in the chat box. And so we're going to switch over to Liz. Liz is a key account specialist for Central Coast Community Energy. She's been with us for quite a bit of time, and she has a wealth of knowledge. And like as with Supervisor Williams, she has a family. So you may hear some, she may mute herself occasionally, but we it's dinner time and evening time. So we thank you for joining us and enjoying us at this time when we're speaking. So, all right, Liz, you're up.
Thank you, Susan. Yes, like Susan said, I am an energy account specialist. I'm located down here in San Luis Obispo, and my family and I live here in the 5 cities area. And I do have a 4-month-old, and so if you hear some screaming in the background, that's what it is. It's the joy of pandemic life. So I have been answering questions in the chat box. They've been really great questions. Thank you so much for adding them. And so currently,
I'll go ahead and read some of the questions.
Thank you.
We have a question from Daniel in the questions and answer box. I think it would be good for everyone to see the answer to this one. Do we need to enroll or opt out if we do not want 3?
Yes, thank you, Daniel. That is a good question. So enrollment will occur for all customers in January who are non-solar customers. And if you would like to opt out of 3CE and return to full bundled service with PG&E, you're welcome to do so at any time. There is an enrollment period, as Oswaldo mentioned, that is through March. And after that, there is a small either $5 or $25 fee for residential or commercial customers. But you are welcome to return to bundled service with PG&E at any time. For solar customers, you will be enrolled in 3 batches to try and minimize the amount of credits that would be affected through enrollment. And those 3 batches are in April, July, and October of this year. And more information can be found on our website under the NEM portion of the website.
Thank you for that, Liz. We have a follow-up question from Daniel. I think it would just go well with what he just asked earlier. How do we enroll?
Yep, so it's easy. You don't have to do anything. Enrollment happens automatically for all customers, and so PG&E sends your information. We put our information, we apply it to the bill, and then from there, you are able to you are part of 3CE. So enrollment happens starting in January, and it will take about a month or so for you to see us on the bill. So starting in mid-February, beginning of March is when you will start to see 3CE on your bill.
Thank you for that, Liz. We have another question from Teresa. She says, thank you for the presentation, very informative. If you are on a fixed amount, meaning your bill is averaged, and you have auto pay, will I need to re-enroll in that?
Thank you for the comment, Teresa. No, you will not need to re-enroll if you have auto pay. And for the budget billing, I believe you're talking about budget billing with PG&E. No, you will not need to re-enroll with that. Any program that you're on currently with PG&E, you will continue to be on with PG&E as they will still provide the transmission and distribution services for you. So you will not need to do anything for that. I do want to note, though, that 3CE does not actually provide budget billing. And so if you have questions about that, then please do call our call center. We will have the number for you. It's on the slide deck right there. And so they can answer specific questions about your account regarding the budget billing at that time.
Thank you, Liz. We have another question from Chad. Will the true-up still be on a yearly basis?
Yes, Chad, it will still be on a yearly basis. We are looking, we will do that when you enroll with 3CE, then that is when your true-up will change to. So it'll be around the same time that you currently have a true-up, and then from there we will have, at the moment, we'll have yearly true-ups as well.
We have another question from Shirley. If we have solar panels and do not use all of the energy generated, will you be reimbursing us for the unused portion? How does the reimbursement rate compare to PG&E?
That is a really good question. So yes, we will be reimbursing you for the unused portion just like PG&E does currently. So if you have electricity extra generation and that you return to the grid, then we do provide compensation for that. We follow the same time of use structures that PG&E does. And so and for the reimbursement rate, we do have the 2% discount from PG&E's rate. And so that applies to both the generation and the usage. So anything that you get from the grid or put back on the grid is at that same rate for 3CE.
Thank you, Liz. The next question comes from Marianne. What exactly is bundled in the PG&E bill? What is the difference? Does 3CE/wind and solar, and apologize for my confusion. I was sorry. I think what is being asked here is just essentially what is being bundled into the PG&E bill. What's the difference between what PG&E sources for and what energy we source for?
Yes, don't worry. It is very confusing. It takes a lot, and that's why we're doing this public forum to try and answer all of these questions, because there's a lot that goes on. So there are quite a few things that are bundled into PG&E's bill currently. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but if you have PG&E's bill and you turn it over to page 2, on the bottom right-hand corner there is a little box that tells you everything that is included in PG&E's bundled service. And so currently, when you are bundled with PG&E and 3CE is not your provider, it includes transmission, distribution, generation, nuclear decommissioning, and a few other things. I just can't remember all of them. All of it is there on the bill. The only change that will happen with 3CE is that the generation portion will come out of PG&E's side and will be on the 3CE side. And so you will not see that in that little area anymore. And so I hope that answers your question. And if you do have more follow-up questions, please feel free to call our call center and they will be able to help you with all of that as well.
Thank you, Liz. Another follow-up question. Will you be supporting wind turbines in the sea?
Currently, we do have a memorandum of understanding with the company that is doing the offshore wind, and I'm blanking on the name of the company right now, but we do have a memorandum of understanding so that we will be partaking in their electricity when and if it gets up and running.
Yeah, the name of the company is Castle Wind.
Thank you. Thank you, Roswell.
Yeah. All right, we have another question from Chad. And for folks who are adding the questions in the chat box, we encourage you to use the Q&A box. It allows us to keep track of the questions a little bit easier, but of course, we're going to go back to the chat box as we cover all of the Q&A questions in the Q&A box. We'll make sure to see if there's any questions that we missed. But again, follow-up question from Chad. Will everyone be automatically put on a time of use rate schedule?
Yes, that is a good question. That is something that is happening. So there is a move by the CAISO, the California Independent Systems Operator, to have all customers move to a time of use plan, and that's within PG&E, SCE, and SDG&E's territory. And so sometime during the next year and a half or so, depending on the rate that you're on, everyone will be moving to a time of use rate schedule. And that will be the same for 3CE. We will be following the same rate schedules that PG&E and SCE have for their time of use.
We have an anonymous question. As far as billing, how will the different tiers used in current billing work?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Maybe in reference to a tiered rate plan, potentially?
It was originally the utilities used to be on tiered rates and the shift to time of use. And so some people are still on the tiered rate, but the residential's all moving to time of use. Mm-hmm. So depending on what the rate is for that specific individual, then we could have a specific conversation about how it would fit together if she wants.
Our electric generation rates mirror the rate schedules from PG&E. So if you're on a tiered rate plan, we also do have rate plans for you as well.
Thank you, Susan Oswaldo.
Another question from Chad. Will new solar customers use PG&E NEM online application process?
Yes, Chad, that will still be the same. So if you have a new solar project that you'd like to bring online, then you do still apply through PG&E, since they are the ones that will interconnect you to the grid. They then provide your information to 3CE so that you will then be on the generation portion with 3CE.
Thank you, Liz. We have another question from an anonymous attendee. So, like a lot of people, I only care about price. Is my bill amount going to be the same, or is it the same price?
That is a good question, one that's asked quite often. Your bill will be less with 3CE than it is with PG&E, because we do provide that 2% discount from PG&E's rates. And so your bill, as long as you continue to use the approximately the same amount of electricity, will be reduced from your bill with PG&E.
Okay, we have another question. This one is from Kathleen. I just set up payment arrangements with PG&E. Am I correct that this will not be an option with 3CE? And if so, how do I move forward with opt-in or opt-out?
That is a good question, Kathleen. So your payment plan that you have with PG&E will continue with PG&E, and they do provide a portion of what you pay. They remit that to us. And so you do not need to worry about having it go to one or the other. Your payment will start with PG&E, and then it will be divided amongst PG&E and 3CE. And so you don't have to worry about that. If you are worried, then you can stay with PG&E, but there is no issue with PG&E remitting those payments to 3CE.
Okay, at this point, we're going to go to some of the questions that are in the chat box. Liz, let me know if these questions have been addressed, but if I see anything that may be useful for the greater audience to see, I'll just read it out loud.
Of course.
Okay. Will the true up with 3CE be quarterly?
Currently, no. Currently, our true up is annually with 3CE, just like it is with PG&E. There is the potential it will start going to monthly, but at the moment it is quarterly, and the change in the true up is up to our boards.
Again, let me know if you've answered this already. So since we are a NEM customer and our true up is in April, do we have until April to decide to join 3CE?
Yes, and you actually have 60 days after that as well. So you will have June through June to decide whether or not you'd like to enroll with 3CE. I do suggest though that since if you are a solar customer or a NEM customer and you decide to opt out and go back to PG&E, it does require a trip at that time. So if you are going to, if you decide you do want to stay with PG&E, I suggest that you make that decision before your enrollment happens so that you don't have to have a short trip.
Thank you, Liz. We have a good question from Walter. What happens when PG&E discontinues providing power transmission and distribution services when it ceases operation?
So PG&E is not going to cease operations. They are a partner and will continue to be a partner. They do own and maintain all of the power lines and the infrastructure, and so they will continue to be in operation. And even after the decommissioning of Diablo, there is not going to be any change to PG&E or to the way PG&E or 3CE operates. Will still continue to be viable, and so will PG&E.
Liz, can you speak to someone has asked where does 3CE source its energy from? Can you speak a little bit to that and maybe where they can find more specific information if they have that specific interest in seeing where exactly we draw our energy from?
Yeah, definitely. So 3CE procures our electricity from renewable sources such as wind, solar, and hydroelectric. And all of the different contracts that we have made, the contracts we've made with specific places that we procure our electricity can be found on our website. We are a government government agency and a not-for-profit, so everything we do is transparent and open and available to the public for if you have any questions. So on our website, there are pages for where we procure our electricity from, the different sources that we've gone into agreement with, such as different solar farms or wind farms. And those can be all found on our website. I don't have it off the top of my head which page that is, but there are, if you look on our website, it is there. And if you have specific questions, again, you can call our call center or email info@3ce.org.
We have another question from Eddie. Can the current equipment sustain the current and future needs? or does there need to be more equipment installed? How do you maintain service reliability with only 32 employees?
That's a good question. So currently, yes, the equipment is enough to sustain our current need. As more renewables are brought online, then we will continue to expand. And as we move to more renewables in general, we will continue to expand and procure more electricity from renewable sources, such as new wind and solar farms that come online. We are working on everything that we procure will be a generation plus storage, because we would like to incorporate battery operations in there to try and reduce the amount of electricity that is on the grid during the peak times of the day, the peak solar, peak wind times, and then reduced when the sun goes down. And so we are working with solar plus storage and wind plus storage. And we are able to do this even with just a small company of 32 because we have a wealth of experience. Our CEO, Tom Hibashi, this is the second time that he has started a CCA. He was first up in the Sacramento area and then has come down here, and he's just a wealth of knowledge in itself, and we have that kind of knowledge within our company. So we are able to provide reliability and information that way.
Thank you, Liz. Could you, I know we visited this a bit in the presentation, but for folks that may be curious about why the unincorporated communities in San Luis Obispo County are not enrolling, can you provide a little bit more elaboration towards that, please?
Yeah, of course. So each incorporated city and the unincorporated counties get to determine whether or not they would like to enroll with 3CE. And so the areas such as San Luis Obispo, Pismo Beach, Grover Beach, those are incorporated cities, and they have elected to enroll with 3CE. The unincorporated San Luis Obispo County, which includes areas like Nipomo and Oceano, they have done a couple of different studies and have presented to the Board of Supervisors, the County Board of Supervisors, and the most recent one being this past summer. And currently the Board of Supervisors has elected not to enroll with 3CE. But if it is something that you'd like to see happen, then contact your supervisor and let them know that you are interested in this. It is a decision that is done by the supervisors to enroll. And so if you would like to see it, then go ahead and contact your supervisor.
We have an interesting question here. Are you governed by the California Public Utilities Commission?
The CPUC, yes, we are. So we are governed just like PG&E and SCE. We are governed by the CPUC. So we are regulated just like any utility is in the state of California.
I have another question from Chad here. Will demand charges change?
Demand charges change. So demand charges, the time period is the same, that it adjusts as generation charges, and demand charges also receive the same sort of discount. So as generation, so at this time those are the only changes that you will be seeing as far as demand. They just mirror the changes that you'd see on the generation side.
We have a question here from Andy. As a 3CE residential customer, it disappeared from my screen. I think the question was, as a 3CE residential customer, can 3CE also provide somewhat of a meter monitoring service, or is that solely?
Oswaldo, I answered it. Sorry, that was me. My apologies.
No worries.
His question was, can he still get real-time meter reading if he's a 3CE customer? Because right now he accesses that. That was his question.
The answer is yes, you can. It is still through PG&E since they are the ones who read your meters.
Okay, we have a new question from Ryan here. How does net energy metering work with existing solar customers? I heard that there may be monthly true-up statements. I was told an annual true-up statement is advantageous for homeowners with solar. How will this be working?
Yeah, so there is the possibility that we'll be going to monthly true-up, and the monthly versus the annual true-up it's completely dependent on your specific usage for your home. And so it could be advantageous to do yearly, it could be advantageous to do monthly. It depends on how much electricity you use and what time of day that you use it. And so if you are curious, more curious about that in your specific home, then do call our call center and they'll be able to help you and provide you with answers about your specific account. But I do want to say that if it is decided by the board that we go to monthly, it will be later in 2021. It will not be right away. And so we do have some time to provide more information about that as well.
Okay, we have another question. It's from Chad this time. Some agriculture customers have a flat rate demand charge for higher HP well pumps, such as 20 HP. Will you still have a monthly flat rate demand charge for those customers?
Yes, so we do still mirror everything that PG&E does for demand and generation. So there are, for some of those, if it's a generation flat rate, then it is something that we would mirror for that. And if it is on the transmission distribution side, then it will continue to stay on PG&E's portion of the bill.
Okay, I lost the question in the chat, but I think I could kind of recreate it. It's, for any folks that may be curious, with the transition to 3CE, enrolling customers essentially being shared customers between 3CE and PG&E, some folks may want to know if that is going to essentially prevent any or mitigate any issues with rolling blackouts. Can you provide elaboration towards that, Liz?
Yes, of course. So the rolling blackouts have been occurring due to the possibility of wildfires starting from high winds and warm weather and lack of precipitation. And so those rolling blackouts or the public safety power shutoffs will continue to occur. And that is just for the safety of all of the customers in the area. It is not something that anyone wants to have happen, but when it does, unfortunately, it will still continue to happen in the near future.
Thank you, Liz. I'm seeing another question here from Ted. If 3CE electrical providers don't have the supply for the demand of electricity, where are you going to get the power from?
So we do have the supply for the current demand of electricity, and we do have it for the future demand as well. So all electricity providers are required to have what's called resource adequacy, and we are required to provide more than 100% of our forecasted electricity at any given time. And so we are on what's called the Western grid. So that includes a little bit of Canada, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, California, and down into Mexico as well. And so there is electricity on the grid from all of those different areas at any given time. And so we are able to pull electricity from the grid and bring it down to this area as needed. So there is enough resource adequacy for the current demand and for our future demand.
Thank you, Liz. We do have a question. Someone has been looking at the two bill examples that we have here. Mm-hmm. And the question is, looking at these two bills, why is the allowance less with 3CE than with PG&E? So this is looking at the slide that's up on the screen.
I believe you're looking at the tier 1 allowance. And so this is just an example, and it happens to actually come from a couple of different bills. And so there are different allowances depending on the area, the physical location of the customer. And so it just happens to be that for these two examples, they are a different total tier 1 allowance. That's a really good catch. Thank you.
Okay.
And I do apologize for my daughter in the background.
Okay, once again, we're going to go back to the just the general resources page that you can see here. Of course, if you want to reach out to us, you can give us a call. You can look at our enrollment page. Right now, we're just going to be looking for any final questions that you may have. Of course, feel free to drop any additional questions in the Q&A box in the chat box. We're going to just be giving it a little bit more time to see if there's any final questions coming from the audience.
I do want to follow up, Oswaldo. I see from Teresa that you were asking about auto pay and not budget billing. And so, yes, your auto pay will continue as well, just like it is now. The only difference is that once you pay PG&E on your auto pay, then they will remit portion of that to 3CE. So you don't have to worry about re-enrolling or signing up with auto pay either. And I apologize for the confusion.
Liz, one of the customers asked, 3CE is 3CE a fully administrative service if we don't have any physical equipment?
So when you say fully administrative, so you're correct that we don't have any physical equipment. We don't own the power lines. We do procure electricity on your behalf. So we go and we talk to a solar provider and we procure that electricity for you. We use PG&E's power lines to bring it to you and then and provide that for you through PG&E's power lines. And so we are doing a portion of what PG&E used to do for you or did for you before 3CE, where they would procure the electricity and then move it through their power lines for you. Now we're just doing the procurement portion of it.
All right, we have time for one more question. And as we wait, we might just be looking through the chat to see if there's anything that hasn't been brought up. But of course, you're more than welcome to leave a question in the Q&A box.
I do see one more, Oswaldo. So who's responsible for Diablo Canyon? And as Susan mentioned, PG&E manages Diablo Canyon, and so they will continue to be responsible for them.
And another question is are most of your energy sources in California?
So that's a really good question. Some of them are, some of them aren't. All of the ones that we are entering into contract with are in California. There are some times that we do buy electricity out of state from Arizona. For example, they have very large solar farms, and so we might procure some electricity from Arizona. But anything that we are doing moving forward, where we are entering into a contract with a specific electricity provider, is in-state. It is local.
We're going to answer one more question with Marianne, and then we're going to close our Q&A session. So the last question for this evening is, if you're partnering with PG&E, who is responsible for the past problems due to the fire with the wildfire issues?
Yeah, so PG&E is still responsible for that, since they are the ones that own and maintain the equipment. And so they will be the ones that are ongoing in charge and responsible for any equipment issues or any equipment things that happen, such as fires.
Liz and Oswaldo, I want to say thank you very much for your clear and lots of different kinds of questions and taking the time. Thank you to everybody who filled up our chat box with wonderful questions. Please take the time to take a look through, because there were some questions that were close to each other. And so as you scroll through the chat box, you may see something that answers a piece of your question or gives you a little bit more information that helps. And we wanted to actually say thank you for taking the time to attend this evening's public forum. We appreciate it very much. We appreciate you sharing your time with us and your questions with us, and we look forward to serving you. Have a great night.